Hi, my name is Terry Christopher. I'm the president and CEO of Zonte Metals. Zonte Metals is focused on a copper project in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's called the Cross Hills Copper Project. We've been working it for 7 years, and through that period of time, we've taken it from a grassroots opportunity to an advanced exploration play. And right now, the project is at a stage where drilling is going to be the main focus going forward. So it should be interesting times for investors.
Interesting times indeed. Terry, good to see you and good to meet you, actually, I should say. We've not met or spoken before. Why don't we kind of kick off and give people a bit of background on yourself? Where have you come from? What have you done?
I'm a geochemist. I have a PhD in geochemistry. Been working in the industry now for 30 plus years, mostly in junior mining stocks or junior mining companies. A lot in Mexico. I worked with a company. We found a deposit in Mexico there back in 2004, I think it was. And then again in Mexico in 2009 or so, we found another deposit, both gold systems. One was porphyry, one was epithermal. I've been running this company, Zonte Metals, since 2010. It was the CPC that we set up, and been really looking for opportunities to put in that. We spent a few years looking for opportunities to get into Zonte. We focused mostly on large-scale hydrothermal systems, and it took some time to find a couple of good projects to get into the company, and that brings us up to present day type thing.
Okay. Well, let's try and understand it because you're in Newfoundland. I think most people could associate Newfoundland with gold, maybe a few attempts at lithium along the way, but you're hunting copper.
Yeah, Newfoundland's actually made up of a series of basically three geological terrains. Most people would be most familiar with the Gander Belt there, where Newfound gold is, where they've found a really nice gold deposit in there. That central part is gold. We're on the eastern side of the island where there's more copper potential. There's potential. We have an IOCG system, but there's also known SEDEX mineralization and stuff like that. So we're just in a different geological terrain.
And can you talk about that? Is it sort of true IOCG, or is it kind of hybrid magmatic hydrothermal system? And
no, we've gone through the process here to type it fairly well. It is an IOCG system. I've had the luxury of knowing a couple key players in the industry. One was the geologist whose team discovered Prominent Hill in Australia. I also have gotten to know a couple, like the Geological Survey of Canada actually highlighted this area as an IOCG potential area back in 2007. Louise Corville was the author of that paper, and I've got to know Louise over the years as well. So it's an IOCG system. We have hit IOCG mineralization on the project, as well as a variant called iron-sulfide-copper-gold system, ISCG system. So we're in the belt.
Okay, so all the geochemical alteration indicators known to you. Can we talk about the data? You've obviously been at this and done a fair bit of work on it. Can you sort of talk to some of that, kind of integrating all of that data, whether it be gravity, geochem, or magnetics, and whatever kind of drilling has happened?
Yeah. So why don't I take you through a short history of what we've done? The first year or two, first 2 years, we completed ground mag and ground gravity surveys, identified magnetic anomalies and gravity anomalies. Spent most of those first 2 years drilling on one particular target. We did hit high-grade copper in there. A narrow high-grade copper was 14% copper, or just under half a meter, and it had a half an ounce of gold and 350 grams of silver. So that was sort of our initiation into the project. After not discovering a deposit there, but seeing that the system is fertile, we spent say years 3 to 5 looking to do more additional surface work to better understand the hydrothermal system. The idea here was through those years, let's get as much data as we can from surface work so that we have a better probability of hitting copper in the drill bit. And we did take so that brings us up to year 5. We tested our theories and our additional data in the late 2023 and the summer of 2024 on one particular target, and we did hit copper in there. So from that time, what we've been doing, and that was that was our smallest target. And then since mid 2024, we've been taking all of our other large targets to drill stage using the same techniques that got us to the discovery that we made in 2023. So, and that is really, the story of the property. We've completed a lot of ground gravity surveys, magnetics, alteration, mapping, structural analysis, soil geochem. We've run as many as 4 different techniques for soil geochemistry, and a lot of prospecting and stuff like that. So we integrate all that data into our sort of our target, and then make a decision whether it's drillable or not, and if drillable, then start picking drill holes, start testing it.
Okay, so you've kind of got a sort of 3D model for targeting. And how much drilling has happened to date? Sorry.
So we've drilled mostly on one target in sort of years 1 and 2, and that's where we hit the high grade copper. Then
Right.
2023 and 2024, we drilled on what we call our K6 target, and our K6 target was our smallest target. It really was a test to see if our additional work would have been successful in discovering copper, which it was. So those are the 2 targets we've drilled on. We've actually have 9 targets right now that have not been drilled. So actually, one has been drilled. One is we drilled a couple of drill holes in one back in 2019 without data, and we're sort of right on just outside of the periphery of the target. So really, we have 9 targets that haven't been drilled.
Right, and so when you talk about K6, and you got bornite and chalcocite mineralization in there. Is that sort of like near surface leakage, or do you think that suggests that you're kind of close to the main ore shell? I mean, how do you view that?
Yeah, so we tested our data set here, and we hit K6 on the mineralization. And what it was, Matthew, is a structural zone that had bornite and chalcocite coming up through, basically a fracture set in an altered sequence. And just outside of that, we have the disseminated pyrite. So that's why it's an iron sulfide system. So the theory behind K6 is that the fluid was there, and it just found the weakest path to surface. Or weakest path, and that's where it deposited. And it's a magmatic system in there. It's a hydrothermal system.
Okay, so it kind of suggests a kind of depth-related metal zoning in reality. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we don't really look at the metal zoning at K6. Because here's what we drill. We drill down and we chase the mineralization down to about 170 meters. And what we see zone-wise in mineralization is dominantly chalcocite for the first, say, 100 meters. And then sort of is 50-50 between chalcocite and bornite, and really that's the zoning and the mineralization there. More importantly for us, the K6 was proof that we're in a fertile copper system.
Right.
If we hadn't hit on K6, then that would have changed the property. So K6 is sort of like a proof of concept. Yes, we have mineralization in the system, and so our aim beyond K6 is to go find a larger target, larger deposit.
So if we look at the copper mineralization, I mean, how you, I guess, gauging likelihood in terms of when you look at things like density contrast or gravity signatures, do you think that best represents a mineralized body or just dense lithology? I mean, how do you interpret it?
So the centerpiece around IOCG exploration is gravity, and you wrap everything else around it, gravity, magnetics, and then we've done a lot of extra work in there. So the gravity is, really simply what gravity is a density change in the rock. That could represent an increase in just hematite. It could represent an increase in hematite and magnetite, and also could represent an additional sulfide mineralization like chalcocite and bornite. So until we drill it, we don't know. But without the gravity, we're looking for gravity anomalies in IOCG systems. That's our centerpiece that we have to look for.
Right. Okay. And what about any kind of structural controls and thinking fault systems?
Yeah,
across
no, we
the.
have we have the structural controls pretty well laid out. We did a satellite, two actually satellite structural analysis, and we've identified there's two structural terrains in the property, and without getting into details, there's a strike slip on the southern part and sort of a gravity system on the northern part, and we can see reactivation through different time periods through the faults as well, which is the key for possible larger mineralization and better fluid flow through the fault system.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So, any indications of fluid mixing or oxidization, reduction, etc.?
Matthew, we spend a lot of time looking at redox, signatures in the redox environment, and that could be a change in the magnetics. We look for subtleties in the magnetic signatures that are associated with gravity signatures. We look for geochemical signatures that would suggest some redox changes as well. Really, it's a good question because it's the first time I've been asked this, but our whole basis is look for the redox change, and that will give us hopefully the location where copper would have precipitated, right?
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
And in fact, we never talk about. You're the first person to ever ask that question. So,
It
but we
happens.
really look for redox systems. Is what we look for. We see it in geochem, we see it in the geophysics, and
Yeah.
then we trace it back to the structurals to see if see if we can find a lodging in a strike slip environment where this potentially could sit, right?
Yeah, and I think for people listening, I think the reason we're asking questions like this is just trying to it's kind of typical of high grade IOCG systems, so it's worth understanding those boundaries. And the other thing, Terry, is like you said, right, we're going to get into sort of drilling phase now, is what you're aiming to do. In terms of advanced exploration. And we talked before the show started. It might be worth you kind of whipping up a few diagrams to maybe talk through that, because I kind of, when I was reading up about this, I had a few questions on it, but might be best answered by a picture painting 1,000 words for us.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll take you through. What I'm going to do is take you through our series of targets that we have here. I think if you can see it on the screen now, what I'm
Yep, you
showing
can
is
see that. Page
uh,
8, I
uh,
think. Yeah.
yeah, page 8. And so what we're looking at is the outline of the property in the white pen, and then superimposed on the satellite imagery are red anomalies. These red anomalies are just the gravity anomalies. So these are the centerpieces of our data sets here. And what we did here is, so I'm going to highlight K6, which is sort of center property in here. You can see the little tiny dot in there. That's the first test of all of our combined data we did in 2023. And we also back in 2019 and 2020 drilled on Duns Mountain target in here. Now we've recently made Duns Mountain gravity anomaly a little larger. We did another survey this past winter, so we've got to go back and rethink Duns Mountain as well. But the rest of the targets that you see, none of them they're almost all drill ready. We have 7 that are drill ready. 2 that will need a little bit of infill work, whether it's gravity and soils, and which we can knock off in short order. So right now we're looking at 9 targets out there ahead of us, and there's a scale bar on the bottom right hand side, and that's a 5 kilometer scale bar. So when you see these size anomalies on a scale at 5 kilometers in the map, you know they're large. So they're large targets that we have here.
Okay. And just in terms of the program coming up, maybe can you sort of talk specifically about how you're going to get after it in terms of allocation of capital? You got to be efficient. You got to go for the most prospective first, presumably. So can you talk about that process, that discussion?
Yeah. So regarding how we're going to drill these targets, we're looking at a couple sort of non-dilutive financing opportunities that we're presently looking at right now. And should those not work, we'll do a financing and drill these targets. But we're really focused on that. We have a couple opportunities that are non-dilutive, so we'll see where they go. So that's the financial component of it. How we're going to drill it in what order will probably depend on a couple things. We can drill this winter. We're fully permitted on one of the targets right now, on the K9 target, which is on the southern end of the property. And we're going to make some decisions on which properties we want to drill through this winter. But the question you asked as well is, which ones are going to be your best targets. And you know, I've been in the industry long enough, drilled enough drill holes with enough anticipation, enough failures that Mother Nature can humble you in a second. So we're really going to let the data just decide. And some of them have a stronger, specific uh, gravity signature. Some have a stronger specific geochemical signature. So we haven't worked through the actual sequence how we're going to drill them yet.
Okay. But obviously, there's a real kind of skill to, and I've talked to enough companies about this now. When it comes to IOCG, fluid signatures are quite different, and your drill programs are quite different, and you're looking for different things as you kind of outlined during this conversation. So when you're analyzing this data for you, what would you say to shareholders and people interested in this? Say these are the things that are most likely to determine success, and these are the things that we pay most attention to when it comes to drill planning.
Yeah, so I'll go back to K6. When we drilled K6 in 2023, we had a whole series of data, and we were through the drilling and then going back and looking at our data set. We were actually able to eliminate certain specific, techniques. Partial ionic leach soils didn't work, conventional soils didn't work, IP didn't work. So with that, then we sort of distilled down exactly, what were the signatures that provided the success at K6. And it was a combination of gravity magnetic, structural, and a couple types of soil geochemistry. And sort of we set the drill up to test those sort of, on that particular target. And really those would be and we have a number of different soil techniques, and we have rock geochemistry and alteration as well. And so those would be the target, sort of the target ingredients, or the ingredients used to make a decision on what to drill. One of the other things that's interesting here as well, Matthew, is that most of our gravity anomalies, which we're looking at on this slide here, sit about 100 meters or deeper in from surface. And we also see in drilling, both at Duns Mountain and at K6, we start to see mineralization in drill core at about 70 to 100 meters down. So why is that important? That tells us that likely the system is preserved, and that we have then also to look at the surface geology in a different light, basically alteration patterns, because mineralization is not really exposed at the surface. So we look at the surface geology, we look at the alteration. I spend a lot of time mapping the alteration. So we'll look at that and then make the decision based on all the other layers of data that we have underneath it for drill testing. But what you're looking at on the screen here are the targets that we will likely drill. There are other targets out there that didn't pass the grade, and so they were dropped. So we never talk about them, right? So
so it's the geology, right? So no kind of copper and rock or copper and soil.
No, we do get copper and rock, absolutely. Yeah,
we do.
Showings.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna what I'll do is I'll just take you through one interesting target here, and it'll give you an idea of what we see on surface. So this is our K10. What you're looking at here now is our K10 targets, both K10 North, K10 South. The red is the gravity anomaly. We don't have any magnetics in here. It gets difficult to discern stuff once you start putting too much there. So, but the red is the gravity anomalies. The green triangles are copper at surface. They're either showings or indications of copper at surface. So we went in and mapped this area and discovered the copper at surface. We did this about a year and a half before we ran the gravity survey. And then so when we ran the gravity survey, you see that all the copper mineralization we discovered in the area, it's above these gravity anomalies. Keep in mind, these gravity anomalies are about 100 meters below surface. So this is a key component too. We want to see on surface, hints that there's copper mineralization as well. So, what you're looking at is an example where there's copper on surface, and we have all the soils in that done, but it's sitting above the gravity anomaly. We want to see that on the targets as well.
And how do you go about then? You got to actually with early doors here. So it's maybe a strange part conversation, but in terms of scale and therefore economics and therefore strategic positioning for you guys, when people and not many people I think understand IOCG in the conventional sense. So, what are the analogs that people can look to, or that you look to even?
Yeah, I'm going to show you another slide. These are just a couple IOCG deposits around the world. And so the most famous one is the Olympic Dam, and everyone understands it as an IOCG system. So I always talk about Olympic Dam because it gets people keyed into, what type of system we have in here. Prominent Hill, they're looking at, or the discovery was just under 300 million tons at 0.9% copper, almost 1% copper, and then, with good gold credits as well as at 8 grams per ton, and then La Candelaria, and both of those top two are in Australia. La Candelaria is in Chile, and is just under 700 million tons at 0.5% copper. So these would be sort of the ballpark ideas that we want to get investors to understand. Like, okay, this is the IOCG system. These are the style. These are the tonnage you can expect in here. And especially Prominent Hill and Candelaria. We've done tonnage calculations on our gravity anomalies, and we have large tonnage opportunities based on our gravity signatures. So we think that the probability to find something large should be there as well if it's mineralized.
Right. Okay. And this. So what's your land package? I'm still looking at it's 25 kilometer land package, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's 25 kilometers. It's about just under 14,000 hectares.
Right. Okay. So it's a big chunk, and I guess you will, as you say, use the data to kind of work out where you prioritize your efforts. But to that end, infrastructure around you, have you got paved roads? Have you got electricity? Got energy?
Yeah. So I'll show you. Slide 4 here is a slide with
Oh
sort
yeah,
of
there we go.
yeah. So on the slide here, you'll see the star is our location map on the island part of Newfoundland, Labrador. A couple of interesting things about this property. We have tidewater on the bottom in here, and we have a power line on the top. And one of the nice things about the power line, it's provide electricity provided from the hydroelectric dams of the Labrador portion of Newfoundland, Labrador. So it has a good, call it sort of ESG as well. There is a road, a paved road that runs sort of down through this portion of the southern portion of the property, and we use ATVs through the property. So access is pretty decent through here.
You referenced earlier that potentially there's some non-dilutive mechanisms available to you, or discussions being had. I'm assuming JV partnering or farm-ins or something of the like, but to kind of get that across the line, you've got to have lots of conversations going on. So do people understand Newfoundland better than they did, say, 5 years ago in the mining context?
Yeah, so one of the things I will say, so most people understand Newfoundland is like, there's a little note on this slide here as well. 2024, the Fraser Institute classified or ranked Newfoundland 6th globally for attractiveness in the mining industry. So it's a very attractive jurisdiction. Our challenge up until recently was the IOCG component, and I've spent a lot of time now. I've been basically doing video calls with various parties explaining this this system. The major mining companies understand IOCG systems. I think the financial sort of the financial sort of Bay Street, that type of stuff. We've taken them through some I guess educative type presentations to better understand IOCG systems. So really we've spent a lot of time now getting people to understand our hydrothermal system, our IOCG system, and it's working in terms of like institutional money is now starting to get an interest in this property. But the larger companies they understand IOCG systems. It's just something that they're very familiar with.
Okay, so bidding needs to come in terms of how you fund the drilling. What else should we be looking out for from you guys over the next few months?
So we just completed two grids are two largest targets actually, and I'll just show you the targets on slide 8. So slide 16 in here. These targets here are so what you're looking at is all the gravity anomalies in the southern portion of the property. You see the drill holes K6 in here are mineralized. They're circled in here. So all of these targets, K10s to K9, K7 are drill ready. We just completed the last bit of gridding on top of both 9 Mile and the K4 target. So K4 is an interesting target, is deeper. We don't know, and soil geochem I'm referring to the gridding, but we don't know if that is, if it's too deep to pick up a soil anomaly. But we will drill K4 anyway. Without getting into too much details, the gravity signature on K4 is very strong and is a deeper target. So so ideally these targets here will all be drill ready by Christmas. So you'll see some news on those. We've recently done a lot of field work as well on K4 to understand it because it's a deeper target, and so we're putting together now. We think we've figured out the model potential that K4 represents. So, which makes us more excited that we're going to stick a couple drill holes in that one for sure. So that to answer your question, that's sort of the news flow here going forward here. We're also looking at, hopefully we can get a sort of a conclusion to a mechanism to get our targets drilled here as well. So, and we're going through some of those processes as well.
Well, and obviously I think with I think copper back over $5 again, there's got to be some interest in companies like yourself. So the message is, would you define this as a new copper area? I certainly not considered it as a copper district.
Yeah,
or,
so
or province,
it's not.
frankly.
Yeah, the area is it's new in terms of we're the first company to go in there to look at the IOCG potential. Now, and I'm going to show you slide 6 here. Slide 6 is a map from a Geological Survey of Canada publication back in 2007. You can see, we're not taking credit for the IOCG identification. This was identified by, a geologist, a Geological Survey of Canada, Louise Corriveau. And so, we're just taking advantage of that previous knowledge. And so so to answer your question, like it's sort of, the area is known for IOCG mineralization or style of mineralization. We're the first company to go in there and systematically explore this. We've been exploring for 7 years. So we're quietly going about our business. We've got a tremendous amount of data here now, and we're basically presenting this data set as well. So, and it's going over well. It's going over well both industry wise and institutional wise.
Well, Terry, I appreciate you making time and spending some time with us today on this one. Stay in touch. Be keen to see how you get on, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time, Matthew. I appreciate it.